Welcome to Beyond Common Sense. Thanks for stopping on by. Do you like my title? What will happen to my stuff? This was a statement my mom made. I'm not exactly sure when, but she asked, what will happen to my stuff when I die? It took me by surprise. I hadn't really thought about that, and my first reaction was, who cares? And I think I did say to her, well, Mom, I don't think it really matters because you're going to be in a better place. But it bothered her. Now, she was not trying to make some theological statement. She was not trying to have some deep discussion. She just was asking, and she had a very childlike faith. I really appreciate that about her. She lived a very simple life. Things didn't really matter to her, but she did hold on to things. And we found that out when we needed to move in with her. Wow. But she held on to things, I think, out of thinking she would need them again. And also because of sentiment. She was sort of the historian of the family. And so she would often end up with things not only of hers, but of her mother's and even of her grandparents. And I'm glad to have some of those things. But what will happen to my things? What is life all about? That's kind of where this is going, and it made me think of the poem called One Solitary Life. It was written in 1926, and when you hear the last stanza, you'll notice, well, some thoughts about that may have changed. Dr. James Allen, and I'm not exactly sure who that is, but I wanted to take a moment to read it to you. He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in another obscure village where he worked in a carpenter's shop until he was 30. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never visited a big city. He never traveled more than 200 miles from the place where he was born. He did none of the things usually associated with greatness. He had no credentials but himself. He was only 33. His friends ran away. One of them denied him. He was turned over to his enemies and went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to a cross between two thieves. While dying, his executioners gambled for his clothing, the only property he had on earth. When he was dead, he was laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. 19 centuries have come and gone, and today Jesus is the central figure of the human race and the leader of mankind's progress. All the armies that have ever marched, all the navies that have ever sailed, all the parliaments that have ever sat, all the kings that ever reigned put together have not affected the life of mankind on earth as powerfully as that one solitary life. I love that poem. And, of course, it's now been 20 centuries that have passed. Is he the central figure of the human race? Oh, wow. He should be. I don't know that he is. But it certainly is true that no one has affected mankind as much as he did. One solitary life. What will happen to my things? Well, part of my thoughts on that probably are coming from 2 Peter chapter 3, which is part of my devotions for this past week. It says this in verses 11 and 12. Therefore, since all these things will be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be dissolved, being on fire, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Well, I guess I don't really have to worry about my things. According to this verse, they're all going to be burned. And it makes me think back to when I was subbing. I remember at that time there was some Mayan clock or something that was running out of time. And I remember the students in the high school really being upset about that. What was going to happen? Was that a sign that the end of the world was coming? And I remember saying to them, I don't really need to worry about that. I know I've got at least 1,007 years more. And they wouldn't understand what I was talking about. And it turned into be a great opportunity to share my faith with them. And I would just simply say, well, I believe what the Bible says. And I believe Jesus will come back and take me to heaven and believers with him. And there'll be 7 years of tribulation. And after that, he will come again and he will reign on this earth for 1,000 years. I hope that brought some comfort to them. I hope it got them thinking about what was coming and whether they could really trust the Bible or Mrs. McAvoy. But I don't have to worry about that. My things. I suppose the other cog in this wheel is the fact that I'm now living in my home. We own it. And that's been the first for a lot of years. So it's really my home, or our home. And at age 64, I keep telling the Lord that I'm done moving around. So last month, he sent a dear young at heart couple to our church, missionaries that we have supported in their 90s. And as he was giving his testimony, sharing his slides and his work, he said that they had been missionaries for 25 years in England and then served another ministry for 25 years. And I'm adding the numbers up and talked to him afterwards. Well, he didn't get saved. I believe he said 37. And he was in his 60s when he started this 25-year ministry. And I'm thinking, Lord, what are you trying to tell me as we're in a bit of a transitioning time? But God knows. God knows. And if we have to get rid of this stuff once again, it's okay. Because what I've realized was it's not about stuff. It's about people. And it's about people because what we really need to be concerned about are those things that will last for eternity. And the only thing in that category are the souls of men. So I need to be worried about that. I need to concern my life about that. We, not just me, not just pastors or missionaries or Sunday school teachers, we need to be concerned about the souls of the people that we rub shoulders with, and some that we don't. That's why we support missionaries. They're doing the work for us in places where we cannot go. So that's how that all comes together. The other thing that may be triggering this podcast is that next week it will be 7 months since my mother passed away. I remember my cousins saying these would be the children of my aunt, my mom's sister, who passed away exactly 2 months before my mom. And I remember one of them saying, we're just orphans because our parents are both gone. Just orphans. I've not walked this road before, where both parents are gone. It's different, and you can't really understand it until you're there. But it makes me wonder about life. What is the meaning of life? What is our purpose here on earth? Well, James is not real gentle. He says this in James 1:11. For no sooner has the sun risen with the burning heat than it withers the grass. Its flower falls, and its beautiful appearance perishes. So the rich man also will fade away in his pursuits. Wow, that was pretty harsh. How do we combine that with the idea of carpe diem, seize the day, live this life? How do we mesh those two together? Well, for me, I want to go to the Bible again, and it just always makes me think of Micah chapter 4, verse 8. He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Once again, I'm going to go to Guzik. He is a commentator, David Guzik, on Blue Letter Bible. And he says this, to do justly. Act in a just, fair way toward others. Treat them as you want to be treated. That sounds like the golden rule to me, doesn't it? We're struggling with those things. For me, it's when I'm behind the wheel of the car. I have to work on that. How would I want to be treated on the road when I'm driving? How would I want to be treated if I was the customer service rep? How would I want to be treated if someone had just stood in line and it was moving very slowly? How would I want to be treated if I were a teen or a toddler or an elderly parent? Do justly, do what's right. And then love mercy. He says, don't just show mercy, but love to show it. Give others the same measure of mercy you want to receive from me. What kind of mercy do I need to receive from God? That's the kind of mercy I need to show to others. Oh, wow. I can understand why Micah said this. It just encompasses our entire walk with Christ. And then the last one, walk humbly with your God. Quote, remember who I am, your God. If you keep that in mind, you will walk humbly before me. Unquote. Spurgeon says this, true humility is thinking rightly of self, not meanly. When you have found out what you really are, you will be humble, for you are nothing to boast of. To be humble will make you safe. To be humble will make you happy. To be humble will make music in your heart when you go to bed. To be humble here will make you wake up in the likeness of your master by and by. Wow, that really says it all. When he says to think of yourself rightly, not meanly, don't think worse of yourself than you are. You're a child of God. You are special to Jesus. You are made in his image. But don't think too highly either. Find that balance of what I'm supposed to think of myself. And when you do that, you won't boast because you realize who you are, that we are really nothing apart from Christ. He gives us the strength to do everything. He gives us the wisdom, the understanding, the motivation. It all has to come from him. If it comes from somewhere else, it will fade and it will pass. So what is the conclusion here as I try to live this life, not worried about what's going to happen to my things? Well, I suppose what needs to happen is that I will brighten the corner where I am. I hope you know that's a hymn written in 1912, a long time ago. It was written by a woman by the name of Ina May Dooley Ogden. She was a public speaker and was, I don't quite understand all this, but she was going to be on the Chautauqua Circuit, which I believe was just a series of places where people would readily go to hear speakers and preachers. And she was just selected to do that when her father fell ill because of an automobile accident in 1912. She was just ready to go, leave on tour, but she was forced to abandon her plans. She was forced to go and care for her father. That really spoke to my heart because of my situation of having to really put life on hold for 2.5 years while I cared for Mom. And that's when she wrote the words, brighten the corner where you are. Very, very interesting. It says this, do not wait until some deed of greatness you may do. Do not wait to shed your light afar. To the many duties ever near you now be true. Brighten the corner where you are. Just above the clouded skies that you may help to clear, let not narrow self your way debar. Though into one heart alone may fall your song of cheer, brighten the corner where you are. Verse 3. Here for all your talent you may surely find a need. Here reflect the bright and morning star. Even from your humble hand the bread of life may feed. Brighten the corner where you are. And then the chorus says that someone far from harbor you may guide across the bar. Brighten the corner where you are. Can you do that today? Can you brighten the corner where you are? How do I do that? Well, You do it by shining like Jesus and letting His Word have effect in your heart, not just reading it, but looking to see what it says and then applying it to your life. Look into some of those old hymns and read their words. Take the Word of God and take a deeper look at it. Take some of the old verses that perhaps you memorized as a child. I love Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord. Oh, there's a good place to start. Oh, but wait, there's more. With all your heart. Is there a corner of your heart that you're holding out on with God? That's the corner He wants. And lean not on your own understanding. I've got this. I can do it. Isn't that how we sound sometimes? And even if we don't voice it, does God see that in my heart? Ouch. Wanda, you're meddling. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. All my ways? All my ways? What I say to myself? What I see and look at when I am alone? All my ways? Yeah. In all my ways, acknowledge Him in the choices of where I go, how I dress, what I say, what I don't say, what I do, what I don't do. All of these ways, acknowledge Him. Then comes the promise. What's going to happen? He will not, He might if He's in a good mood. No, that's not our God. He will direct your path. That's how we brighten the corner where we are and don't have to worry about what's going to happen to my stuff. Thanks for listening and have a good and godly day.